What's growing on, gardeners? It's Sunday, March 31st, and it is a gorgeous weekend here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. As gardeners, we often rave and promote our favorite edible plants to plant out into our garden, but sometimes we neglect to mention those very important support plants that build the strong foundations for our garden. Well, on today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 flowers that you simply must plant around your yard and garden, because not only do they bring in beneficial pollinators, but they often help repel and eliminate pests from your yard and garden as well.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
We all know that planting flowers around our yard and garden is great to bring in and support pollinator insects, but that is only one small benefit to planting flowers. Some flowers attract carnivorous insects that will feed on the insect pests in your garden. Some flowers emit an odor that will confuse insect pests so they can't find and locate your plants. Other flowers give off scents that flat out repel insects, and some flowers can draw in insects away from your plants. We call this trap cropping or distraction cropping. So the benefit of planting flowers is absolutely enormous. And these 5 common, easy to find flowers are some of the most beneficial. Now, before I proceed, if you're interested in purchasing any of these seeds, the seeds that I can directly link to, I will down in the video description for your convenience. Some of these were purchased directly from seed exchanges, so I will zoom in on the individual seed packets so you can see exactly where I purchased the individual seeds. The number one flower that I plant in my garden every year are sunflowers. Sunflowers are my favorite flower. Not only do they make your garden look great because they're just so beautiful, but they are magnets for pollinators. Bees fly to them like crazy, so if you want to bring lots of bees into your yard and garden, plant sunflowers. But still, that is not the top reason why I plant them. The top reason why I plant sunflowers in my garden is because they are like magnets to the number one pest that I have in the middle of summer: leaf-footed bugs. They are also highly attractive to beetles and stink bugs and shield bugs, which are also problems here. And while that at first may seem like a problem, this is actually a major benefit. I plant the sunflowers as trap crops or distraction crops. You see, before I started planting sunflowers in my garden, all of the leaf-footed bugs, stink bugs, and shield bugs would flock to my tomatoes in my garden, and they would suck the life out of them and destroy the fruits. Well, what I started doing was I started planting sunflowers out in front of my garden away from the tomatoes. And what I found was, as the sunflower heads began to wither away and die, all of the leaf-footed bugs, stink bugs, and shield bugs would flock to them and congregate on them. They loved them so much that they totally left my tomatoes alone. So over the last few years, I've developed a foolproof system to minimize the problem with these pests on my tomatoes. What I do is I plant a small wave of sunflowers immediately at last frost in order to get them ahead of my tomato season. What I found is that as the sunflower heads began to die, that is what attracted the leaf-footed bugs and the stink bugs. They would congregate on the dying sunflower heads, whereas the pollinators, they couldn't care less about the dying sunflowers. They wanted the young sunflowers. So I plant the first wave so the heads of sunflowers are dying and drooping and falling over as the tomatoes are beginning to fruit. Then I come in a few weeks later and I plant another wave of sunflowers so I have nice, beautiful young sunflowers in full bloom to attract the pollinators. So what I do is I let all of the leaf-footed bugs congregate on the dying back sunflower heads, and then I spray them with Pyrethrum, a natural contact killing insecticide, and I don't have to worry about harming any of the bees. I'm able to trap and kill off the population while the bees go to the nice young sunflowers. So I plan out 3 or 4 waves of sunflowers every single year, so I constantly have nice bright fresh heads attracting the pollinators and dying drooping heads that distract and trap crop the bad pests. And it has been an absolutely wonderful system for me that I think you can employ if you suffer from these pests as well. I've been planting this Paradovic variety of sunflowers for years, and it has been very effective at this trap cropping scheme. However, this year I'm going to play around with this American giant sunflower variety as well and see how big they can get. I think that all sunflowers are going to be highly beneficial. If you want to do this trap cropping scheme, I suggest you try this Paradovic variety, though many varieties may work out just as well. Flower number 2 that I'm planting all around my yard and garden is the Pyrethrum daisy, which is a type of chrysanthemum, specifically this Robinson's mix chrysanthemum, which has tremendous benefits. Pyrethrum daisies are known for their natural insecticidal properties. Pyrethrum extract, a potent broad-spectrum natural insecticide, is extracted from the dried flowers of this type of chrysanthemum. This extract kills nearly all insects on contact, like aphids, thrips, beetles, stink bugs, leafhoppers, harlequin bugs, whiteflies, ticks, caterpillars, and so much more. While pyrethrum extract is very toxic to insects, pyrethrum daisies are not. The plants themselves produce an abundance of beautiful flowers that are very beneficial to pollinators. However, because of the toxicity of their extract, the plants are known to be very unattractive to insects, and they rarely suffer issues from insects as a result. Now, don't expect 1 or 2 plants in your yard to have any effect on insect population. However, a common strategy used is to plant them as a border around a particular area or interplant them closely with other plants that are insect vulnerable in your yard and garden. In very close quarters or as a border planting, they have been documented to show pest repelling properties. And you can take the old flowers and crush them up to make your own natural pyrethrum insecticide. Flower number 3 is Alyssum, or sweet Alyssum. Now, Alyssum is a member of the Brassica family and is closely related to broccoli, cabbage, kale, collard greens, and chard. Alyssum is native to the Mediterranean, so it enjoys growing in full sun and is loaded with beautiful clusters of flowers that kind of look like a carpet. Now, the real benefit of Alyssum is the insects it brings into your garden. Aside from bees, Alyssum attracts butterflies, ladybugs, hoverflies, all of which feed on aphids. If aphids are a problem in your garden, consider planting sweet Alyssum to attract these beneficial insects near the plants that are the problem. Alyssum also attracts parasitic wasps, which lay their eggs in or on other pests nearby, which then hatch and the larvae consumes them. Pretty cool. Beneficial flower number 4 is the Nasturtium. Nasturtiums are known to be excellent companion plants for tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, cucumbers, brassicas, and melons, which I think is pretty much everything we grow in our gardens, because they are known to prevent infestations of the whitefly, cabbage loopers, cucumber beetles, and squash bugs. Not through directly repelling the pests, though. Instead, it is believed that their pungent odor masks the scent of those plants the insects are trying to find, which confuses the pests. Now, this is not magic, it is simple strategy. In order for this to work, nasturtiums need to be closely interplanted to a point where the leaves intertwine with the vulnerable host plant. Basically, the insects need to hop onto the nasturtium plants by mistake, where they will then realize they're not on the correct plant and fly away in confusion. For example, if you have problems with squash bugs, you would want to interplant your nasturtiums with your squash plants, and as the squash bug is trying to crawl onto your squash plants, it keeps accidentally walking over the nasturtium leaves in the process, and then it will get confused and leave. You can't just plant a nasturtium nearby and expect magic, but when strategically interplanting like this, it kind of creates a maze for the insects where they can't find the plants they're looking for. That is how this works. Beneficial flower number 5 is Borage. Borage is a well-known companion plant for tomatoes and is probably the most popular flower for tomato growers. Borage is well known to emit odors that repel hornworms, and closely interplanting the borage with your tomatoes can help reduce the risk of a hornworm infestation. But borage is also well known to repel cabbage worms and Japanese beetles for the same reason. Planting borage near brassicas and other plants susceptible to cabbage worms, as well as any plant vulnerable to Japanese beetles, is a good strategy to reduce the populations of these pests while attracting pollinators to your garden. Now, as I mentioned, for these flowers to be effective, you need a proper strategy. I've heard many reports where people do plant these flowers in their yard or around their garden, and they don't really see any kind of benefits. So I'm going to give you 4 tips to help maximize your results. Tip number 1 is to manage your expectations. You can't just plant a couple of these flowers in your yard and expect some kind of benefit. This is not magic. You aren't going to repel all insects doing this. These are just ways that you can naturally reduce the population of problematic insects. It's not a substitute for insect management. It's just a technique to reduce your risk. Number 2, for these techniques to be effective, you must closely interplant the flowers with the host plant that is at risk, or plant a large border planting around an area that you're trying to control. Simply sticking a few plants around your garden or around your yard just won't do much. 3, these plants can be invasive if not managed properly. All flowers eventually go to seed. So if you allow these flowers to go to seed on you, it's possible they will grow back in that area for some time to come. If you want them to reseed themselves, just let them be. But if you don't, be sure to manage the plants once they begin to reach the end of life before they start going to seed. And 4, an ecosystem can only handle a certain population of insects. By flooding the area with bees and other beneficial insects, you naturally squeeze out the pests. Just like you can only fit so many humans in a given area, the same thing goes with insects. You will still see some nuisance insect pests in your garden, but if you're flooding the area with pollinators, chances are there are less other insects as a result. So again, this is a reduction technique, not a total elimination technique, so you will still have to engage in some insect management principles and techniques like spraying or checking your garden on a regular basis to look for eggs and things like that, or to suck up the adults with a hand vacuum like I've showed you how to do in the past. And remember, any flower you plant around your yard and garden is probably going to have some sort of benefit. So if it's too late for you to go out and get these seeds and start the seeds for the season, or if you just don't feel like starting the seeds, just go to some kind of local nursery or store and just buy some type of flowers. Buy the flats of the least expensive flowers you can and just strategically plant them around to try and draw in beneficial insects. Chances are, by bringing good bugs into your garden, you will have some benefit to reduce the bad bugs. So it's not mandatory that you plant these flowers by any means. However, I think these are 5 of the best and most beneficial where you'll see the greatest success if you interplant them or if you set up barriers or borders accordingly. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. For any of the flowers that I will place direct links to the seed down in the video description for your convenience. While you're down in the video description, check out my Amazon storefront link for everything I use in real life in my garden, and also my spread shop link for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Dale must be having an incredible dream. He was running in his sleep. Do you think he's running from something? Or running to something? Maybe chasing a ball? Or chasing the mailman? Maybe chasing a bunny? Sleep tight, Dale.